Hancock, clearly suggests you use the new variant, which was the Kent variant, into 2020 to frighten the pants off everyone. Hancock, if you're watching this, you are responsible for putting the nation into fear.
Hello, folks. How are you? I hope you got over your Anzac Day okay. I hope you went out and paid due deference to those who've served and continue to serve for us here in Australia in our Defence Forces. I'd like to say good day to the gentlemen and ladies that I spent a bit of time with yesterday afternoon. It was a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for inviting me into your special group. Well, some of the stories are truly amazing, and I appreciate just being allowed to sit on the edge and listen. It was marvellous. Thank you all for your service. And I'm sorry in many cases for those brothers that you lost while you were serving. So a great afternoon of memories, a great afternoon of remembrance, and a great afternoon of pride I found in many areas that I was at least. There was no talk of backing down. A lot of talk about the red flag. What's that bloody red flag? What's the blue flag? What's the difference between the flags? A lot of people were very surprised to find out that the current Australian flag, the blue one, has only been around since 1953. And what was the flag before that? Well, that would be that red one. And a lot of people confuse that red flag with the naval red ensign, the naval red flag. There is a difference, but tonight is not the night for talking about that. Tonight is the night to get back to David Cole. Tonight, I hope he's got a little bit better battery. We won't have him dropping out, but we're going to get on and have a bit of a talk about Langarama and the journey that's coming up in June. G'day, Dave Lumpa. Thank you very much for coming back. And you look like you're not standing on a beach this time, so I don't have to be on crocodile watch.
No, brother, I officially did the last trip about an hour ago, taking out the last bit of rubbish and stuff from our retreat. It's taken me from last Monday till now with two other helpers to clean it all out. So now I've got the phone plugged in this time for you, brother. So I won't be cutting it.
Well, we touched on it last time when we were talking about the great work that you and your foundation were doing, and the fact that the Northern Territory government have kicked you off the land that you were using and have been using for some 17 years. So no wonder it took you a week or more to clean up. You've had a fairly long accumulated history there. And I guess they've left you stranded. There's no more funding either. So it's difficult for you to go off and rent some land somewhere to go and do something like that. Obviously, you are trying to do as much as you can to find a new home, and we'll try and do what we can here to help you find different homes around Australia, because your course, as you said, has been in huge demand in a number of areas around Australia, not just in the Northern Territory. So I really hope we can help to do that. And if there's anybody watching now that can offer a little bit of land somewhere on a beach somewhere, or in a huge paddock somewhere, you might have a couple of million acres. You're looking for some cowboys, might be able to help train up. So I really hope we can help, Dave. I want to make this happen for you.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I really appreciate the offer and the call out, and to anyone out there that's wanting to assist, I thank them in advance. We are having conversations with some tribal groups about setting up a healing place on country, where hopefully we won't need to buy the land. We'll work out a deal, and if that happens, I guess the greatest call out we could call out is for people to help us set up a basic camp facility. We're not looking for a 5-star hotel. We're not after 20 million. We'd be looking at basic camp style accommodation, and something that we can lease out when we aren't running camps to people who want to come out there and have an experience. Langarama could also use it, and the profits from it go back into employing the local Aboriginal people that run the healing stuff with us, and the experiences, and the funds would also go back into running the healing programs for the kids. So we're really going down that pathway of trying to step away from being reliant on government, because I've worked out after 30 years, which an uncle said to me, if your program succeeds, they will cut your funding. and I didn't believe him. And that's because we're worth a lot more suffering. We're worth a lot more in jail. If we were properly funded, Carl, to run our program with full staffing, working with up to 120 kids a year, we'd empty the prisons. But here's the sad reality in that. The equivalent of 7 kids in detention centre funds our program for a whole year.
Wow.
And we reach up to 120 kids a year. And the CEO of the Aboriginal Legal Aid Service in Darwin, her name is Priscilla Collins. A couple of years ago, she was asked by the then Chief Minister, Michael Gunner, what's your opinion of the Balunu Foundation? And she said, I'll give you my legal team's opinion, not mine. And their opinion is when kids go to Balunu, we don't see them back in jail, back in court. So what that means is 7 kids in prison would fund our program for a whole year, reaching up to 120 kids. And given that we were never funded more than 15% of what we needed at the peak of us running our programs, and we emptied the youth detention centre with 3 staff, 4 staff at sometimes, running around the clock, working hard, tirelessly. So if we had a full team and a full funding, you can only imagine what we'd be achieving when the Royal Commission said into the youth detention, the Royal Commission said that the only shining light was the Balunu Foundation. So it took them $70 million to find that out. So look, we need to do it with our government. We need to do it with the Australian people. And here's the thing, brother. I really think that there's a lot of good heart out there. I really think that there are corporations and big money people who want to support. They just don't know where to support. And it's like a mate of mine who went to a presentation with Philanthropics. They asked him, they told him, he walked away with, I think, a total of 35,000, and he had 16 of the biggest philanthropists in the room. And the CEO at the time for one of the foundations said to him, we've been advised not to give to the Aboriginal area. And he said, why? He said, because all the money we've given over the years, hundreds and hundreds of millions to government, to federal government, state governments, he said, there's been the outcomes are getting worse. So we're achieving nothing. It's wasted money. And he's right. It is wasted money based on who's managing it, this current corporate government. Now, if the Australian people were to get behind programs like the Balunu Foundation, and there's hundreds of programs across the country at the grassroots delivered by Aboriginal people that are achieving amazing results and amazing outcomes, they just don't have the resources or the manpower. So this is an opportunity, as far as I'm concerned, to start fresh, bring the Australian people and the corporates into it, do it with our government and do it really well, and show the people that we can not only heal the kids, but we can achieve real reconciliation, because until we address the intergenerational trauma in this country, we're never, ever going to have reconciliation. Until we address the trauma that the young ones and the old ones are dealing with every day, we are going to be running in a loop. And by the time we come out of that loop, everyone's going to wake up and go, the oldest living culture on the planet is now officially dead. And we're right at the doorstep of that. So rebuilding Balunu is not just the benefits are beyond healing the children. The benefits are healing the nation. The benefits are healing the people. The benefits are growing change where it's going to have a longevity, and that's at the grassroots with grassroots solutions. So we welcome everyone to join us, brother.
I agree. I think you've raised a really important point there that not a lot of us are willing to speak about, because they're going to be accused of racism or bloody this, that, or the other. But hey, listen, I'm going to dip my toe into the water. The perception of where the money goes, be that donated by me as an individual or by government, seems to be the problem. Now, me as an individual might see me donating to your cause, for instance, as a wonderful thing, and it is. Absolutely get 100% behind it, because we know, based on your track record, on a provable history, that the money is going to go and aid the youth. You're not going to go and throw a party in the bush for them. The government, on the other hand, are going to throw a lot more money that might in some cases involve a party in the bush, if not a weekly or bi-weekly party in the bush, with incentives for this, that, or the other, that doesn't actually achieve anything for our nation, doesn't bring our nation together. It does seem to keep one portion of the nation, unfortunately our Indigenous portion, dumbed down to a certain sense. Is that a fair statement?
That's an absolute fair statement. It's not only an intention to dumb us down, but it's, I call it systematic genocide. So if you work in government and your responsibility is to ensure that resources reach a certain aspect of our community to address social needs, and you see a solution there and you refuse to fund that solution, you're in effect causing injury, harm, and loss to the community. That's called malfeasance, misfeasance, criminal misconduct, whatever you want to call it. Now, the government has done an evaluation on our program, and their evaluation proved that the program stops kids suiciding, keeps them out of prison, rehabilitates them, reduces their self-harm and substance abuse, and re-engages them back in school and family. The University of New South Wales conducted their own independent evaluation of 6 healing programs across the country, and they told me that the Balunu Foundation's evidence-based outcomes was streets ahead of any other programs that were operating around the country. They then had a $70 million Royal Commission, and that Royal Commission, like I said, one of the main head lawyers came out to shake my hand when I dropped off my submission, and he said, I asked him, why do you want to shake my hand? And he said, well, in our investigation, the Balunu Foundation is the only shining light. I said, so it's cost you $70 million to find out what we already knew, what the community knew, what government knew. Now that $70 million would have run our program for the next 30 years here and across the territory and possibly into other states. And they're building a $380 million prison to put our kids in, while you're telling me that our program was the shining light in your investigation. Why aren't you putting resources into prevention, healing, and stopping kids from getting into the position where they're going to commit, any sort of offence or self-harm or suicide or, So it's look. I'll give you these stats, and this will answer it for all the listeners. In 2011-12, 25.4 billion was spent on 2.6% of the population to achieve negative outcomes. 2013-14, that increased to 30.3 billion for 2.8% of the population to achieve negative outcomes. 2015-16, 33 billion on just under 3% of the population to achieve negative outcomes. Now, of the 2013-14 30.3 billion funding, less than 1.5 billion reached the grassroots. And out of that 1.5, that was chewed up by government, corporates, private enterprise, NGOs, and companies. There's nothing at the end of that for tribal people. So what they tell the Australian people is, we give the blackfellas $33 billion, but they don't want to help themselves. What they don't tell you is that funds hundreds of government departments across the country, including the police and multiple other groups. So they make it look like they're giving those funds to us, telling you that we get everything for nothing. We're driving around in flash four-wheel drives. Now, people are living in overcrowded housing, poor food, poor water, poor education, poor existence in what I call concentration camps. So the tribal people are not benefiting in any form from the resources that are purportedly allocated to address our needs. And when we implement solutions like this, because mine's not a theory, it's a 29-year proven program that it's saved kids' lives. And when you consider that 85% of the kids, so we've taken out over 850 kids, 85% of those kids had either attempted suicide or had suicide ideology at the time that we met them. And of those 850 plus kids, we've been to 2 funerals in 17 years. Now, that's 2 funerals too much for me. But at the time of the peak of our program, Darwin had the highest youth suicide rates per capita in the world. And we were getting outcomes like that, and they still stopped our program. So when a government and a bureaucrat can stop funding to a program that's saving a child's life, is that or is that not the worst kind of negligence that you can imagine?
I couldn't agree more with you. How long, or have you seen a point in the territory where this has got worse? And does that seem to coincide with the privatisation of jailing in the territory, as it seems to have done in other Western Australia? Is another one that springs to mind.
100%. John Elferink, I believe his name was, the Minister for Corrections here at the time, signed it all over to a US corporation. So the prisons in the territory, and I'd say the whole country, they're all owned and run by foreign corporations. Prisons and industry, it's a business. In the territory, Aboriginal people are 36% of the population, yet we're 95% of the adult prison population, and we're 100% of the juvenile detention. So we're a very lucrative commodity in that prison. And like I said to you, it's $230,000 a year to keep a child in detention. And 7 of those kids would fund our program for a whole year, with a 3-month intensive program reaching up to 120 to 200 children a year. And keeping in mind those outcomes we achieved that the Royal Commission said was the shining light, keep in mind that we never had more than 15% of what we needed to operate. We ran with an average of 3 staff, and we emptied the juvenile detention centre with that little resources, and we only ran a program for 6 days, brother.
Wow.
So we got those sorts of outcomes in 6 days. If you gave me a kid for 3 months or even 6 months with the full staffing to give them the required support, you'd have to shut down the youth detention centre, guaranteed.
Yeah.
We emptied it at the peak of our program with nothing. That's the reality.
Yeah, and of course, that's not good for their business. It's really great for the people, great for the people concerned, but not good for their business. There's a few comments coming up, very few, may I add, but just the odd one or two, that says, look, we want to approach Aboriginal people. We want to have discussions with them, but we get abused, we get called names, or we get branded as, some kind of do-gooder just for wandering up and trying to have a conversation. Now, I was up in Cairns recently, and I've got to admit, I found them to be like the Aborigines that I met on the street in servos and in shopping centres were the loveliest people. One guy came up to me one night, gave me a fist pump as I walked out of a supermarket and said, I hope you had a really good day, mate. And I said, I've had a great day. 3 girls came in after him and they were like, how you going, mate? I said, I'm really good, girls. How's your night going? Yeah, bloody great. So I haven't found that. But I'm sure there are circumstances where, and probably those circumstances might be around alcohol or at the pub or somewhere in a social circumstance where there is some kind of issue going on. But how do we build that bridge? How do we build that? I'm a bit worried to come up and talk to you because I want to talk to you. And if I'm honest, I explained to you, I think, that I was up sitting off Orpheus Island at Yanks Jetty a couple of weeks ago with Peter, Skipper Peter, and there was a family there from Palm Island. Wonderful folks. Now, hello, Gary and the family. Now, we were sitting at picnic tables beside each other. They had a dog. We had a dog. Their dog was loving our dog. And yet we didn't start a conversation immediately. There wasn't, g'day, folks. How are you? Lovely to be here. I'm a talker. It didn't take long. The dogs are a great icebreaker. And soon enough, we're chatting away. But that's not always that easy. So, what do we do, Dave? Is it just a matter of getting out and meeting more people?
It's just patience and waiting to meet the right people. I mean, let's be realistic. There's a lot of our people are dealing with all sorts of trauma and intergenerational trauma, and not only that, but 233 years of promises and broken promises. And unfortunately, it's like when somebody sees a tribal person and they've had a bad experience, they just think that person's the same. Unfortunately, It's the other way as well. A lot of our people have had a lot of bad experiences with non-tribal people, and sometimes they're all chucked in that same basket. So people may be just approaching somebody who already has issues, already has issues with non-tribal people, and sometimes people will react like that. Sometimes there's more going on in someone's life. Sometimes they it's a bit like you said just then, brother. If I walk up to any stranger and just go, hey man, I want to have a talk to you and just connect and they're probably going to go, man, fuck you, a bit weird, like go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I walk past the day, I'm like, yeah, good. How's your day going? You know, keep the conversation real, keep it raw. I mean, I know the people who are going up to tribal people to talk to them are keeping it real.
Yeah.
But when it comes across that you know, I want to talk to you because I want to help you and I want to save you, and it can be very patronizing. It can get people off guard. It can make people feel like, oh, here we go, 5 minutes conversation and you want to try and save my world. How about you just go away? People have lots going on in their life, all people, and a lot of our mob are struggling for different reasons. And most tribal people have probably had every promise thrown at them their entire life, and sit there. And I see it with government. You know, it's just broken promise after broken promise, and people get tired of listening. People get tired of talking. People get tired of telling their story. So it just comes down to those people who are feeling like that.
But apparently we don't get sick and tired of voting the liars back in that keep telling us those lies. You know, I'll make you this promise, I'll make you that promise, but when they never do, we always seem to vote the same lying pack of bastards that have cheated us out of whatever it is they've promised us back into power. How does that work?
Oh, that's because we're all being conditioned to think there's no other alternative. We're being conditioned to think that this is the only way. And look, if people are struggling to meet people, and I know it's a sort of a big option for them, but that's exactly why we've created Langarama, brother. Langarama is about come and sit down with tribal people, ask the questions that you can't ask. Ask the ignorant questions, ask the racist questions, ask any question you want, and we'll clear it up for you. We'll break it down for you. We'll educate you. And everybody who's come on Langarama, I mean, I had a solid brother from Adelaide come out on Langarama, and he said growing up, you know, he always thought the Aboriginals hated him personally. He'd go into the city and he'd have issues and he didn't know what was wrong, and he came on Langarama and it all fell into place. He said, I get it all now. Now I get their anger. It wasn't at me. Now I get their frustration. It wasn't at me. Now I get their situation. And it had nothing to do with them. It's Langarama is a opportunity for people to come and connect personally, intimately, ask questions, build those relationships, build those friendships, and more importantly, gain an understanding for the intricacy on how tribal, how our communities work, how our family structures work, how our kinship system is. Because when you understand that, you can actually learn the entire dynamics of what it is to be a tribal person on this continent, and that's why we started Langarama. We've got some great photos there of the first group that came out. Uncle Clary Rogers on there from Nooka. He started Langarama with Dave Sumby over 15 years ago in the red shirt there. He is a legend. He's got legend on his shirt for Bob Marley, but he's a legend in his own right, this great man. And
awesome.
He's had meetings with up to 8 clans to allow for us to take non-tribal people onto his country. And that's how serious it is. It took eight tribal clans to meet to say, yes, you can take white people and other Aboriginal people out to that space.
So just to highlight this new Langarama journey that's coming up in June, and people can get details or can make bookings through your website at langaramajourney.com, LANGARRAMA journey.com, and everything's there. But just give us an idea of what is exactly so different and so special about this Lamarrama.
Well, we got a short journey during the wet and in the lead up to the dry. This journey's so the short journey is on Larrakia country, which is Darwin, and that's a 4-day experience here. That gives people great insight. Clary comes up and joins that journey as well. That gives people great insight, great connection, everything you're going to get on the long journey. The long journey's richer for the simple fact that we're going into remote, pristine, untouched lands. We're talking 15 kilometres of pure white sands, on land where you're not going to need a boat to go fishing, brother. You chuck the line in the water and your line's going. We're going to be seeing sacred sites and camping in an area that not even other Aboriginal people can go to. I can't go there. If I walked into that country right now today myself, I would get dragged out, speared, or punished. You can't go into this country. So the 8 clans have met to open it up for us to be able to go into this special place. And when we go out there, Langarama is not just about Clarey and those who are working directly with it. When we go out there, you'll find that Langarama becomes the entire community. The entire community. You're not going to go out there and meet Clarey and a couple of elders. You're going to meet the kids, the women, the men, and you're going to see ceremony and dancing and culture in its most richest form. And that's what we're offering to the people of Australia, is the oldest living culture on the planet, which is your greatest reminder to who you are, no matter where you come from. Because we're all human beings of Mother Earth, and we all have the same DNA. We all have the same blood. We all have the same minerals in our body. We all bleed the same, and we all come from the one creator, Mother Earth. People follow religions and gods and stuff like that. In our culture, it's the earth that created us. That's our mother. So when you come out there, we're going to connect you back to who you are, back to your homelands, back to Scotland, back to Ireland. I mean, my Aboriginal culture is my closest reminder to what my Scottish and Irish ancestors once were when they were living on the land, when they had their law, when they had their ceremonies, when they had their customs. That's a few thousand years removed. So the big journey is going to be rich beyond imagination. We're going to start up here in Latakia country. We're going to make our way down to Mataranka, and then we're going to head from Darwin. It's about 650 k's into Arnhem Land. And we're going to go out to pristine, incredibly, unbelievably beautiful country, and we're going to be immersed in the oldest living culture on the planet. And that's where people are going to really get to understand why are our people so angry? Why are our people hurting so much? Why are our people suffering so much? When you come and get a taste of the richness of what our culture offers, and you realize that this current corporate government is genociding the oldest living culture on the planet, I hope that your arms go up in the air as angry as our arms are. I hope that our white brothers and sisters around this country will come and stand with us, not just to heal the tribal people, but to heal them, to heal this nation, and to build a nation based on truth, honor, respect, and common decency. And you have to remember this: common law comes from the simple principles of do no injury, harm, or loss. Now our law comes from nature. Our law is about the balance of everything. It's about harmony. It's about the balance of nature, and our law comes from nature, and therefore is the oldest natural law on the planet. And ours is based on the same principles: do no injury, harm, or loss. Do not cause any ill to anybody, and we maintain the balance. So by coming on Langarama, people are going to get to, 1, connect with the culture, 2, connect with themselves, 3, connect with Mother Earth, and 4, they're going to take away memories and experiences that are going to live with them for the rest of their life. And more importantly, when they go home, we've got a lot of brothers and sisters, just like your guest who put up the comment before about approaching people and stuff. We had people on our first journey who had that experience, and they didn't know, oh, how do I talk to an Aboriginal person? What do I say? How do I approach them? And they were really unsure. And then they came on Langarama, and by the time they left, all we heard out of their mouth was, I can't wait to get home and see a countryman. I'm going to go up and talk to them and say hello, and I know exactly how to approach them. I know exactly what to say, and now I understand just a little bit of what they've gone through. I know how to do it with respect and compassion. So it's a bit like being, like, I'm scared of snakes, right? I don't hate them, but I'm scared of snakes. Now, if I went up to just any snake and touched it, there's a good chance it's going to bite me. Not knowing anything about it, how to handle it, how to approach it, all of those things, I'm bound to get bitten or snapped at or told to go away. But if I have a bit more knowledge and information, I can approach it in the right manner, with the right energy, with the right intent, and I can approach it on the right angle and do it. And I could probably handle any snake I could. I won't, but I could if I had that knowledge. So Langarama is about equipping people with the knowledge and giving them a connection to the oldest living culture on the planet, while we connect them with them. And you will not come on Langarama and not go away feeling healed in some form. We don't call it a healing journey. We don't call it. We call it an experience, an immersion.
What's appealing to me about it is that it doesn't sound like, the kind of trip you get if you go on a cruise ship and turn up on a South Pacific island somewhere and the natives run out and greet you, wearing grass skirts and waving sticks. This is a truly natural and organic experience. That it's not a show, if you like.
No,
that's what's appealing to me. You really are meeting the people. You're going to hear about their stories, their lives, and our culture. Because I'm ashamed. I'm born here. I consider myself indigenous to this country, but I don't have anywhere near the cultural grasp of my land that I should have. I'm ashamed of that. And that's where I think Langarama has the potential to help so many people like me make that connection.
Absolutely, brother. And no, it's not a glossy sideshow. It's deep, meaningful conversation. So a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about and stuff that we'll share, and the open conversations that we allow to open, allows for people to ask questions that they would not normally ask, or are too ashamed to ask, or embarrassed, or feel like it's ignorant or racist. They can ask absolutely anything, and everything is broken down, and people are educated. In terms of the culture, it's not a dance show.
No.
We take people through understanding the intricacies of our kinship system, because when you can understand the intricacies of the kinship system, then you can understand how the whole society works. And when you know how the whole society works, and you might see for example, Arnhem Land is a massive, massive region, and we're talking hundreds of tribal groups across that whole region, clan groups, and you will have a child from one area of Arnhem Land, and they can meet somebody from the complete opposite area, which would be over 900 kilometers away, and the moment they say who they are, the family will all know, oh, you're this to me, you're that to that one, you're this to that, you're that to that. This is where it's just automatic. A little child can meet a group of people and fit into that group of people through that kinship system, the structure, the family lines, and everyone knows exactly who's who, where they're from, and in a lot of cases they even know, their clan groups, their totems, everything. So it's
interesting for me with that, David, is the only other like you don't see that in Australian culture outside of Indigenous. And the only other place where I really hear of that happening is old school European families. They are very interested in your bloodline, very interested in who you come from. And that could be because of the cabal nature of old Europe, I guess. But they, the only white people that I know, Americans don't have that kind of cultural knowledge of their own bloodlines, but Europeans, and particularly high society Europeans, are very much in touch with that. So it intrigues me that is the way that our people can have that instant bond, and the Europeans can have that instant bond. We need to develop that between, our Indigenous white people like me, born here, and our First Nations folk.
Yeah, sorry, I'll let you finish.
Yeah, no, I think I had finished. It was now turning into a brain fart.
No, you're right. I hear what you're saying. Look, and that's what Langarama is. It's an opportunity for Australia to come with an open heart and open mind, and immerse themselves in the oldest living culture on the planet, connect themselves to who they are. I'll tell you why the European old families may be feeling that way. Now, there's a DNA study. I haven't read it myself. A friend of mine read it years ago, and there's 7 strands of human DNA, and they say that the older the more strands, the older the race. Now, apparently, this paper, which I haven't seen, I'll just put that out there. I haven't read it myself. I'm going off a trusted friend who claims he read it years ago, and that DNA 7 strands. The Asian to Europe came in at 1 to 4. The Africans came in at 4, and we had what they call the Pintupi 9. The Pintupi 9 were a group of 9 tribal people who walked out of the desert in 1983. I think it was 83, around the 80s, early 80s.
I vaguely remember that.
Yes, they came out of the desert, living the old ancient ways. Now they tested them, and they had all 7 DNA strands, which makes the tribal people here the oldest race on the planet. Now, there's a site up here in Darwin, on Latakia country, that Uncle Juma will tell the story when you're on the journey, and that site is a significant site, and he talks about the old people taught him when he was a little boy that site was where everybody left for their promised lands. So from that site is where everyone went off to the Asias and to the Europes and everywhere else. So if that DNA study is correct and that site is legitimate, and I've been getting whispers from people that they're building up Darwin for a reason, that it's going to be the next Jerusalem, they call it, of some sort. And that would make sense. Why would it have so much significance? Now, if this story that Uncle Juma shares with us, that is where they left for their promised lands, then Uncle Juma says this to everybody. He says, you all have come back from when you left to fix what was broken from when you left.
Yeah, right.
You got it? So you've come home. Carl's come home. Yeah, you've come home. You come home. When they left that sacred site, they held the law. They held the balance. It all got thrown out. It all got thrown out to the point where it came back and threw this out here. And Uncle Juma talks about all these people, black, white, Greek, Asian. He said they've all come back here, right, to fix what was broken from when they left in the first place. And that's the opportunity. And that's why the Pope said in 2017, the only hope for the planet is Indigenous sovereignty. And the reason he said that is because we don't have a contract, a treaty, or an agreement, and that's why they're pushing the voice and a treaty. They need a contract. They're desperate. So Langarama is that opportunity for Australian people to come and connect, to feel and taste our culture, and to immerse themselves in it, and to build those relationships and that love, so that when they come home, they can walk up to that tribal person on the street, and they are going to know how to approach them, and they are going to know how to speak with them, and they are going to break down barriers that way. So Langarama is that.
Do you have limits on numbers? How many you can take on Lamarrama this year?
Look, we can max out at about 30. I think we could probably push 40, but June we won't be going past 30. If we get 30, right now we haven't filled 20. But I did get a message today that somebody wants to book in a group of 6. So that may get us to the 20 mark for June.
Great.
If we get more than 20, 30 bookings or inquiries, we will open up a July tour, only if we book out a minimal of 20 people. The long journey, and look, the reality is we only have 3 months a year to go on the long journey. So it's June, July, August. If we filled up, it'd be pretty sad if we couldn't get 60 people in Australia to fill up 3 months.
I agree.
So if we can fill up the tours for July, August, then we'll run a long journey for June, July, August. If not, it's looking like June. Skip July onto August, and August will come down to whether we have the numbers for a small or a large group. A large tour, sorry. But we will run this. We will run
I
the
know
small ones
I've
in.
had a heap of interest here. So those folks, if they haven't already found the Lamarrama website, which is pretty easy, Langarama, Langarama journey.com, and you'll find all the details there about this particular journey there. But I'll send that out to the folks who've emailed me too, Dave. There's probably 20 people there that have sent of interest to learn more about it. So, and I would love to come on at some stage. So, bring a couple of cameras, and we'll do a night or two, do a show from out there under the stars. It'd be,
hey,
amazing.
Brother. Yeah, you know what? That would be amazing. Doing a show out there under the stars, and you can sit and talk to the world with Clary Rogers and Juma Fiji. How about that? That would be a great show, and we talk about unity and walking together. We can show the world that we're not just talking about it. Come on, Langarama, we're walking the walk, not talking it.
We'll have a yarning circle at Langarama.
Yeah, and here's the input. Absolutely. And here's the powerful thing for Langarama. I mentioned it before, but I should mention it again in case people weren't listening the other week. But like anything, when you start it up, it takes a while for anything to see a profit. And right now, Langarama is in its very infancy days. We've got a very small number of volunteers that are helping us try and make it happen, and we're building it up. But when it is seeing a profit, when it is generating a profit, for example, let's say you come on the June tour in June, and we go to Latakia country, and then we go out to Nooka. What will happen is if we see profits from that tour, for example, let's say there's 20 grand profit, right? I'm just making up numbers here, of 5 grand, 10 grand. Half of that will be allocated to Nooka, and half of that will be allocated to Latakia. And the Latakia Elders Council and the Nooka Elders Council will turn around to Balunu Foundation and say, well, if we've got 10 grand there, we'd like to go on these workshops, these healing projects, and these programs for our kids in our community. So the whole point of that is we're running it through the foundation to self-generate our own income, to heal our people through our own resources without asking the government for 1 cent. And so by coming on Langarama, you're in effect leaving a healing footprint that will have longevity. Because when we do the work that we do with these kids, if we're doing something with the kids in Nooka because of Langarama, and it saves a kid's life or turns a kid around or gets them on track, that's going to be the direct result of people supporting Langarama, and that's the beauty in it. It's a win for everybody, and the ones who will win at the end of it will be the children, and the ones that will win will be the children into the generations to come, because it's all about cycle breaking. So this is a great chance for people to not only come and get some healing yourself, come and immerse yourself in our culture and the richness of our land, but it's also about coming in and helping the children and helping the people, and the healing that's going to be left behind. Like I said, brother, that's indefinitely. When we plant a seed, or we give somebody a tool and they change their life, that's forever. And that's the beauty of what Langarama offers.
I think it's a magnificent thing, and as we discussed last time, it can be rolled out in any state. It doesn't know state boundaries, culture, connection to country, and understanding natural law, LORE law, which is something that not just black young people have lost, but white people have no concept of whatsoever either. We could all do with a little taste of it all. So I think it's a very exciting chance.
That's the beauty of our program, brother. I've taken out white kids, Greek kids, Italian kids, black kids, you name it. I've taken out every race of kid that we have on this continent. And I can assure you that all the non-Aboriginal kids that have been on our program have gotten as much, just the same, and if not, in many cases, more than what the tribal kids have got. Because the non-tribal kids that have come on the program actually already had the respect and the connection with our people and our kids. But they've gone away connecting with our culture and feeling richer within themselves for having that experience. So our program doesn't have any boundaries to any race or color, because suffering doesn't discriminate. The reality is, if we were a non-Aboriginal organisation and I wasn't complaining about kids being abused in the system over the years, we'd have $50 million sitting in our bank and spread this across the country by now. And the beauty of taking out non-tribal kids, because we don't just work with boys, we work with girls as well. The beauty of taking out the non-tribal kids is they come out there, they get the healing, they get the connection, and they have a stronger bond and relationship with our children and our people for the rest of their life. So the healing work that we need to do for all our kids across this country, of every race and every colour, suffering doesn't discriminate. We need to grow programs like this to reach every kid out there. And I know through what we've done with our kids and the other kids that have attended our program, it's just the love, man. It's just the love, the nurturing, giving them tools of understanding, helping them understand their trauma and their pain, and getting them to map out a life plan where they can see a future for themselves. And you know what? They do the rest, bro. They just run. So this needs to be something that reaches all kids. And that's where we get to take our non-tribal young boys and girls through programs and activities that help them transition into manhood, help them transition into understanding a bit more of that connection with self and the land and that responsibility. So, you know, I've heard it for many years, you know, we've got nothing for our young boys to go to and learn about becoming a man, or to transition, or to, you know, become that man. And that's what we have the chance to do with programs like this, brother.
Can I tell you why there is an immediate block from young white fellas wanting to learn about young black fellas transitioning to being men? It's because as far back as when I was a young bloke, apparently that transition involved a very sharp rock, the end of your dick, and a very strong man wielding the rock, chopping the end of your dick off. Now, that was as far as we thought the culture was. That was you becoming manhood, being circumcised by a rock. Now, I don't know that ever happened. I don't know that it does happen or still happens or anything like that. But that is one of the cultural breaks that I have as a young child in my head, thinking, oh, well, I don't need to learn about any more about becoming a man. I just need to be thankful that I don't have to do that.
Well, firstly, I can't talk about law and I can't talk about anything like that. It's against the law.
Right.
So we'll end the discussion around it. But what I'll say is this: learning the law involves walking the land. Where do you find water? Where do you find food? How do you know what animals to eat? How do you know what plants, what medicines? How are you going to sustain yourself walking from one billabong to another? What leaf can you put under your tongue that stimulates your saliva? Law is not just a one moment ceremony. It's a lifelong learning, and there's different phases, different stages. But the most important part about it is going on country, being on country, knowing country, learning about country. You know, an elderly lady shared an amazing story with me. She remembers walking through the desert when she was a little girl with her father and her grandfather, and they were in between locations and they had no food, no nothing. And he stopped at this area, and there was different types of soil, and he got a pinch of different soil and just put it all together, basically making a pill, you know, just a mud pill, and gave that to everybody, and all the family ate it. Now that gave them all the minerals, nutrients, energy they needed to keep moving through the desert to get to the next place. Now, that sort of ancient knowledge, you know, and that sort of ancient knowledge being passed down today is what we're losing rapidly and what we're desperately trying to hold on to. So ceremony and law is not necessarily just a moment of an activity. It's actually a longer learning process, and it won't always necessarily be, all right, you're going out and now you know everything.
Yep.
I could go out. I could go out bush. Hey,
you can flunk the test.
You can flunk the test, yeah. Well, you know, you're out in the bush. You have nothing. and you've got to learn how to survive. I mean,
Yeah.
it was no different
Well,
to what would have
flunking has
happened in Europe.
consequences, serious
Hey?
consequences. Flunking
Yeah,
has serious
absolutely.
consequences.
Yeah, death being one of them.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sure in Europe they probably used to climb mountains and kill a lion or a mountain tiger, and they were a man.
Yeah.
Some parts of our northern regions in the old days, some parts, not all, but they would go out and have to kill a crocodile.
Bloody hell.
In some parts, and that's to prove that they had the warrior within them to be able to survive, be able to fight, be able to kill, and beat that animal. And it's not everywhere. It's not like everyone who goes out kills a croc. I'm talking about in the old days. In some areas, that was a part of the ceremony, part of going out and living on the land. I've got family and friends who, went out when they were 12 years old and walked whole tribal boundary lines with the elders, and just walking those boundary lines for 3 weeks, no food, no shoes, nothing, and just living off the land is a part of that ceremony. It's a part of that learning. You know what berry to grab. There's multiple purple berries. One can make you sick, and one will give you everything you need. So it's all about learning. It's all about that knowledge, and it's what we're losing, brother. We're losing this at a rate where one day, if we don't wake up, if this country doesn't wake up, one day they will say we had the oldest living culture on our doorstep and we let it die before our eyes. And that's what's happening right now. We are losing it rapidly.
Some would think we're trying desperately, well, not we, but certain members of the government particularly are trying to kill it. And not just it, but many
trying.
other cultures around the world.
Yeah, not trying, brother. They are. Yep.
Is there an appetite within? I mean, I know that you and your group and whatnot, there are groups, small groups, if you like, in every town where there's Aboriginals in town, but there seems to be a larger group that isn't listening, that are just behaving badly. The young kids, bored, I understand suffering trauma from 223 years ago, but it makes it hard to bring everybody to the table when you've got to keep an eye on your car keys or your phone while you're having the meeting, trying to make everybody happy. I know there's no easy fix for this. I know there's no quick, easy fix for this. How do we, as a community, help those struggling, the kids that are struggling, be that because their parents aren't at home a lot or they're not being fed regularly or whatever? What can we do? How do we, the old, and I think from an Aboriginal standpoint, this couldn't be a truer adage. It takes a village to raise a child. We need to bring our village together, our black and white village together, and start looking after all the kids, black, blue, brindle, pink, purple. I don't care what color they are. They're our kids. The fuckers are stealing them, murdering them. So, how do we bring this together? What's the first step? I'm looking at any way we can try and, bridge this gap.
I don't have the answer for everywhere. I can only speak for where I am and what I've done, which is support local programs that are trying to help the kids and help the community. Go and touch base with your local Aboriginal corporations there. Sadly, some of them are in it for the money too, and don't do what they're supposed to be doing as well.
And that was
but the reality is
raised in the chat, because when we're talking about the privatization of jails and whatnot, there is a level of corporate black involved in the money transfer from government to tribal people.
100%.
Why does this corporate black group have so much support, if you like, from tribal people? Or they wouldn't be in this position if they didn't have that support, would they? Or is this just another one of those, fake shows that's been drawn in front of our eyes?
Well, you have a large majority of the people who are suffering. the only services they have to assist them are the Aboriginal organisations and corporations. Those corporations and organisations have been hijacked by the government many years ago. They are full of yes people. Everything that is funded is reactive, not proactive. So that's why they got rid of ATSIC years ago. It wasn't because the whole of ATSIC was mismanaging money. I think the national manager at the time, someone just wrote in there, traders everywhere, Carl, and that's true, traders everywhere. But someone at the time had misappropriated money or something, and they shut down the whole of ATSIC. But they used that as a catalyst to shut it down. But ATSIC was starting to get too powerful. It was bringing the people's voice straight to government, and they were becoming a very powerful lobbying group. And a cousin of mine was actually the state manager for ATSIC here, and he made it very clear to me that there is money for policing, there is money for medical, there is money for prison. Everything is reactive. They will not give us $1 for prevention. And now that's because it sets up the prisons, it sets up keeping the tribal people oppressed. And that's exactly why Joby Peterson said many years ago, be very careful allowing these Aboriginals to rise up because they'll become the next Arabs. Now you have globalists that are raping trillions of dollars out of this land every day. And that's not going back to the tribal people who own the resource. That's not going back to the Australian people who are working to create the industries that are producing all that wealth. That's going to the international globalists and the bankers, and it's been stripped straight out of these lands. Now, Julia Gillard said this in 2012 at the National Minerals Dinner, and I quote word for word when they asked her for a tax concession, the miners. She said, we're not giving you a tax concession, and here's the crux. You don't own the minerals. We don't own the minerals. Government merely affords you a license to mine a resource that we hold in trust for a sovereign people. They own it and they deserve their share. Now, in order to maintain the biggest corporate theft in the history of humanity, not just in Africa, but here, they have to keep the tribal people oppressed. They have to keep the culture dying. And the reason being is, when you go to court and say, hey, man, I got tribal ties to this land. My blood is to this land. This is my land. You know what they ask you? Do you know the ceremony? Can you sing the song? Can you dance? Can you paint the songs? Can you tell us what the sacred sites are? And when you can't answer any of that, you're gone. Your case is over. You have lost. So the destruction of the culture allows for the continuation of the theft of trillions of dollars of resources that aren't going back to the tribal people, aren't coming back to the Australian people, and by then creating an industry off our suffering, that's why they've started up the National Indigenous what's it called, the Indigenous not mental health, the name slipped my thing, it'll come to me. The National Disability scheme.
NDIS. Yeah.
NDIS. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, why all the tribal people have been placed under that? Because if you label us as having mental health issues, we are then like a child. The corporation is a part of a global treaty called Trickle Treaty, which is the protection of the child. This is how they're forcing their jurisdiction over us. By saying that the child's at risk means that they can intervene and do whatever they want. Right? By keeping us as debilitated or disabled people, right? The mind of a child, they must and can keep managing us. So by keeping us managed, by oppressing us through poor living standards and killing the culture, you ensure the ongoing theft of these resources. And if the Australian people think that this doesn't bother them, guess what? You're missing out because the trillions are going overseas. The taxes aren't being paid here. And they are setting it up that they've hit us with a bioweapon and destroyed 27 million people across this country and tortured us. It's going to get worse. Once they get this voice, once they have a contract, once they have their handful of leftover sellout puppets, like all those so-called Aboriginal people that were standing with the Prime Minister crying for you to say yes to a voice. Okay, they're crying because their time's up. I mentioned it on your last show. The doctrine of discovery was repudiated by the Vatican on the 30th of March. And the doctrine of discovery is the last draw card that the corporation and the governments and the Crown all held to say, we can be here for this reason. That's now been repudiated. The Vatican has asked all governments to assist in the repatriation of the lands to the tribes. And Albanese and all these corporate sellout blackfellas in the government are all crying for a contract because they want to keep stealing our wealth and deceiving and committing treason against us all, black and white. So we have a chance here as the people to bring it all together, to heal as a nation, to work together, to keep the wealth here, to create prosperity and abundance for all, no matter who you are on this continent. And under our law, if you and I go hunting, Carl, me and your family eat. It's that simple. Yeah. So when we hunt as a nation and we create as a nation, we share abundance as a nation. And that's what they're afraid of.
I couldn't agree more, mate. Could not agree more. All right, I'm going to put the website back up again so folks can have another quick look and see how you spell it. Langarama Journey, and langarama.com is the website to go and have a look at this journey. And if you want to book in, then there are still maybe 10 or so spots available in the June trip. Now, how long is it again, Dave? How many days?
The June trip will be 7 days, 8 days, 7 nights, and the May trip will be 5 days, 4 nights. We've got a short trip in May on Latakia country. It will be rich. The long journey, obviously, the more places you go, the richer it gets. So as we bounce through, it's going to get richer. And brother, I look forward to you coming out on the journey, and it'd be great for you to come out and film and tell the story directly to the people. So then they don't think it's just me telling them how deadly it is.
Absolutely. I would love to be part of it, mate. So we'll talk. I've got something else that we're working on in June, and just depends on dates. I might be able to swing it. So we'll talk. And
why don't you round up 20 mates and come in July, and we'll open up a July tour.
That's not a bad idea either. All right. Well, why don't we focus on July then?
Yep.
And all right. Well, we'll talk. And if you've got interest in going, folks, email me, carl@vofhq.com, and I'll open up a new folder and we'll start a tour group. I would love to be part of that, mate. And the learning experience alone is one aspect of it, which, I think we will all grow for. But I think something far greater, far more powerful will come from it. And that is the fact that we can go away from this and share it with everybody that comes close to us. And hopefully a little bit of what rubs off on us will rub off on them. And not only will more people decide to come and do the experience, but that unity we're building can only be enhanced by something like this. So I'd be honoured to come along and be part of it, Dave. Really would. Absolutely. And I would also love to have you back once again next week. We've got a lot of reactions. So we haven't really spoken in depth about the voice tonight. So I figured between now and next week, if you're available, you pick the day and time, we might go into the pros and cons of the voice in great detail.
Well, let's do that, and let's also break down how do we get out of this?
Yeah.
How do we walk together? Because there is a way out. All that's required is common dream and unity, and we can take it, bro.
Can we have a yarning circle in this electronic environment? Maybe we can bring a few others in and have a chat.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, all right.
Let's talk on the phone between now and then and work out who, and let's get it organised.
Bloody beautiful. Excellent, mate. Well, I can tell you, unless it's Michael Saylor, who I grew up with and haven't seen since I was about 18 years of age, and I think he lives in Townsville these days, or his brother Michael, who's somewhere down in Victoria. I don't bring too many to the party. Auntie Glenda, I can ring her and invite her. But very happy to see who we can get, mate. Let's do that. Let's organise that. That'll be next week.
Let's do that. And hey, before we go, brother, can I just clear up something? You did apologise last week about saying you'd never have me on your show, and you've had me on twice now. So we'll fix that up. But I just wanted to clarify something that was raised that you mentioned that we didn't talk about. But just for the listeners out there, at no time has any sovereign group that I'm involved with had any dealings to do with the United Nations. Where that came from, let me just clarify this for the listeners. We have a declaration. I'll send you the declaration. We have I'm just writing this down or I'll forget. We have a declaration that was read out to the full United Nations Council in 2013. And that declaration in there was unrebutted by every government on the planet, including the Australian government that was in the room when it was read out. And it was made very clear to the United Nations at that point that the Aboriginal representative with the Australian government sitting over there does not speak for the sovereign tribes of our continent. And in that declaration, it refers to the international rights of Indigenous people. And in there it says that Indigenous people are entitled to education, housing, food, this, that, basic living standards and health requirements. There is a set basic standard that the UN says all Indigenous people are entitled to this. Now, in the statement that was read out, somebody's taken our statement and cut it. And what it looks like and sounds like is that we're working with the UN. And the statement is something to the effect of we acknowledge and adopt the United Nations rights of Indigenous people as a basic starting point for what we need. So what was read out to the UN is, you've said that's our basic rights. We're saying that as a starting point, we agree with you on that, but here's what we really need to take our freedom, self-determination, and heal. So that's where it all got taken out of context and flicked around the freedom movement. And people were saying, oh, they're working with the UN, because somebody chose to take that sentence and say, we adopt the United Nations, full stop.
Yeah.
So
great.
That's where that throw out came from. And honestly, if I was working with the United Nations, I'd expect you not to have me on your show. And if I was working with the United Nations, we wouldn't even be talking now. So I think that clarifies everything for the listeners.
Yeah. Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. And I can't wait to have you back next week, and we'll see if we can't get a few others on and have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, let's do it, brother. Look forward to it.
Find a way forward with this. Where we can unify, walk together. We've got to be shoulder to shoulder, or the bastards are going to crush us. So
that's right, bro. That's right.
Yeah.
We can sort out all the petty. When we take our freedom, we can sort out the petty differences later.
100% right. 100% right. And we can probably do that over a bloody good yarn and a meal and a beer and Australians are good at sorting shit out. Doesn't matter what.
Hey, brother, look. You said you'd never have me on your show, and now we're talking like we're best mates,
look
right?
At that. Exactly.
So that's how quick we can get over shit, and that's how quick we can fix it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Cheers, Dave. Thanks for coming.
Good to talk to you, brother.
Cheers, mate. You too.
Likewise. Have a good night. See you, bro.
David Lumper Cole, but great guy from the Northern Territory. And if you want to get more involved and learn more about the Langarama journey, then go to langarama.com, LANGARRAMA.com, and you'll find the journey there. There are some contact details, and you can book your journey on there as well. That's a great offer he's made for July. So if you guys are interested and you want to do a Voice of Freedom tour, maybe we can get 20 of us together and go. Email me, carl@vofhq.com, and I'll make sure we get it all happening. I think it'd be pretty cool. Not just cool to travel with a bunch of you guys, but I think it's important, not cool. I think it's important that we get a grasp on our cultural heritage. And if we're going to call ourselves Australian, then we can't just ignore it. Oh, I'm too old to learn new tricks. Well, not this dog. I'll give it a go. If only for the experience, the meeting of people, the understanding of culture, and maybe some of the photos you can get at night when there is no light pollution. The stars will be absolutely amazing. So, yeah, if you're interested, then please email me, carl@vofhq.com, and we will look at that journey for July. I did mention there are some things that we're looking at in June that might have made that hard. Those things would continue into July. Not in a position to tell you about what's going on there yet, but next week we might be a bit closer to telling you what's going on with that. Next week I'm going to take a little bit of a trip. I'll be going back north again, but I'm not driving this time. It's going to be a quick trip. We hopefully will have the opportunity to do at least one live show from where I'm going, but it won't be a preordained audience show, so to speak. I'll basically tell you where I'll be at what time, and if you want to turn up, that's where I'll be. But we're working on something pretty exciting that I hope will both entertain, educate, and may help continue funding the Voice of Freedom in the future. Because it's times like this where I have to talk to you and ask you whether or not you would consider helping me by donation or by membership that I really hate. I want to get away from that. I want to be able to fund this some other way. But until I can get to that, then I'm requiring your help. So if you are prepared to help, God knows we love you for it. I have the odd sticker, maybe a T-shirt, provided you're in a nominated size. I've got a few things that can help, but memberships start at $1.25, and we are working on the legalities of being able to run a competition for our members online. That competition will involve a bar of silver that we're going to be giving away. But that'll only happen to our members. So if you want to be a member and be in with a chance for that competition, once we get the legal sorted and get them posted on vofhq.com, we will be able to start running that competition. And at the end of it, with a bit of luck, we'll have somebody walking home with a reasonable sized bar of silver. I think it'd be pretty cool. There are a few other things we're working on. John Wilson is all full of ideas. I'm looking forward to that. And we will be talking a few of those ideas in great depth with John in a couple of weeks' time. I hope there may be a fishing rod in his hand while we're doing that talking. There'll definitely be a fishing rod in his hand while we're doing that chat. So there are a couple of interesting things happening in the background, but that is more about the future of VFO and making sure that we can actually keep going and that we can become something more viable for a future for everybody here in the freedom movement, not just me, but everybody who is doing the right thing, pulling the line, trying to bring us all together, being unified, all telling the same story. And that story is about helping each other, not helping individuals or helping ourselves. So if you can help, would really appreciate that. Thank you, Sunflower. Thank you, Sandy, for your stickers. VOFHQ.com, that's the website, and you can donate or you can become a member. That's about the only two ways to help us at the moment. Thank you if you consider to do so. Also, please stop sending me all the Vince fan mail. God almighty. Send it to vince@vofhq.com. I don't want to hear how good he is and how marvelous he is and how magnificent. I know how good he is. That's why he's with me. But I'm sure he doesn't mind hearing about it. So I'm very thankful to have Vince on my side. And last night's little show about how to set up a wallet and talking about Bitcoin and, well, crypto in general, people got a great deal out of one way or the other. In fact, a lot of people who are not interested in our QSI shows at all got a lot of great feedback from those folks out of last night's show with Vince. So you can probably suspect that we'll see a bit more of Vince talking about crypto in the not too distant future. He seems to have developed his own fan club. So if you're that or part of that fan club, then by all means email him, vince@vofhq.com. He loves to hear from you. I'm being a bit rude. I'm going to get him in trouble. And yeah, anyway, Samantha, I'm just having a read here. Let me put this up so I can see it. Yes, we do think the internet coming down and is coming sooner rather than later. I've been thinking that for some time now, years, in fact. But we are living in hope. We are hearing stories. Yes, things are coming closer. Yes, there's lots happening. Yes. Look, all I can say is there's plenty happening in the world that makes you go, If you're not going, and you're just completely accepting of it, then good luck with the rest of what's coming your way. In fact, let me tell you about a little experience that I had. I've got to finish because I've got to go to another meeting after this, but I want to tell you about a little experience I had today with ChatGPT. My housemate Sharon has been encouraging me to go back through some of my old content and repurpose it. And that's an interesting idea. Using a couple of different AI systems, one called Otter AI and ChatGPT, I have the ability to transcribe video and take chunks out of it and turn it through ChatGPT into something else. So just as a let's try it and see how it goes example, I put up a short video from a funeral director in the UK. This is the transcription that it got from that video. As a funeral director, I'm seeing a massive increase in death rate exclusively in jab recipients. Do you know how many children I've had that have died from the coughing disease? None, not a single one. Neither is any of my colleagues, none of them. You're putting your child at massive, massive, massive risk of damage. People need to wake up because they're euthanizing the people in hospitals, in British hospitals, with midazolam right now, without even them getting a jabbity-jab test. They're killing people with that remdesivir thing. They know what it does, and they still do it because they've got bills to pay, and their bodies are so full of fluid, their kidneys are packed up. As you move them across from the stretcher to the stainless steel tray in a mortuary, you leave an imprint on them because they're so full of fluid where their kidneys have failed due to the medicine. This is an agenda, and I would have never believed. I was never into conspiracy ever. I was never knowing that they know they are doing it and are pushing on with it. You're committing murder. You're being complicit in mass murder and hiding it. I would like to see all the nurses and doctors who know what's going on down tools and walk out and come to an undertaker's. What do you think I'm telling them? You know, it's not because I'm putting people in coffins. It's because I am putting people in coffins. So, a little disjointed in my reading of it. But at any rate, it may not have been a completely accurate transcription. It didn't matter, however, because I took that transcription, dumped it into ChatGPT and asked it to put it into a point form summary. And it refused. And then it shut down. And then I went to log back in, and I am found that my account has been flagged for abuse. That's the first thing I've ever asked ChatGPT to do, right? It's the only thing I have ever asked ChatGPT to do. My account was minutes old when I did this, and now I am flagged for abuse and can't log in. Now, I don't know how long that's for, because any help they tell you is of no help whatsoever. It's the AI that you talk to. And it talks around and around in circles until you eventually find a way to supposedly appeal your ban. That is a whole pile of bastardry all by itself. But what happens if you go to delete your account, or you wanted to set up another one? So I've got about, I don't know how many email addresses, but a few. And I just thought I'll pump in another email address. I thought I'd forgotten my login. That was it. I just thought I'd forgotten the password that I'd set up an hour earlier. That wasn't the case. They'd blocked me, thrown me out basically completely off that one thing. So I started with a new email address, typed it all in. You've got to put your phone number in for checking. Of course, pings you on your phone number. Your account is flagged for abuse. Right. I still don't understand what I've abused it with by asking it to transcribe that, well, not transcribe, but to turn that text into a dot point format. Anyway, then I started looking at deleting my account, thinking, oh, well, if I delete my account, what does it say? And it says, oh, well, if we delete your account, all your details will be deleted and you'll have no further part in ChatGPT, and you will not be able to do it again, like to get another account. You will not be able to get another account. So if they delete all your details, how the hell would they know if it's you getting another account? Your phone number. So if you're stupid enough to put your phone number into it and they delete that, you better have another phone number and another email account, and then you can keep using it. But at this stage of the game, I have, on just my basic experience with ChatGPT, and that is my first experience with it, if it's going to ban me because I get it to, well, it understands that it's an undertaker talking about the shit that's being pulled out of people's bodies and how their bodies are reacting after the jabbity jabs. How much can you trust an AI system that is already lying to you? That'd be the question I have. I don't think you can trust it, not one iota. Are there others? Yes, there are other AI systems out there. This Ask AI. I haven't tried the test on it. I will. Sharon was telling me there's a couple of others that I can probably try it on. But this one in particular, owned by, I think somebody said here, Samantha, was it? Yeah. It's a Windows Bing thing, semi-owned by Gates. So all of these AI systems are going to be semi-owned by one of these cabal assholes, aren't they? So if not the same cabal asshole. So what's our future with AI like this? Interestingly, AI is now being taken as gospel. I was somehow or rather sent an interesting tweet today from Cooker Watcher, who I promised I'd never mention on the show again, but there you go. It was interesting that one of the people who was replying to something that they were talking about was quoting ChatGPT's answer. They were all talking about, using this AI for something. And the inference to it was, it is God. It knows everything. It is not wrong. You cannot dispute ChatGPT. Well, I've just proved to you that all of that is absolutely incorrect. ChatGPT is 100% controlled, as I suspect all of them are. So don't be stupid and think, if you ask it basic little, fluffy little questions, it's going to tell you the truth. Absolutely. Why would it lie to you? But when it doesn't allow you to work with what is factual evidence, that becomes a problem. I would be very concerned if I was using ChatGPT, and a lot of people are apparently making huge money out of it, writing blogs or repurposing material or using it in exams to finish their homework, to pass exams. I'd be very careful about that way of learning, because the AIs are going to teach you what they want you to know. And obviously, very clearly, they are going to push back hard if you want it to do something about something they don't want you to know, or to explore, or to extrapolate, or to expose in any other form that ChatGPT can do it. So that'd be my little take on what's going on with them at the moment. Let me have a quick glance here and see what sort of questions there are. Crush, you put something in there. Oh, no, I think I addressed that one earlier. Yeah, I addressed that one earlier. Sunflower, what's this? You'd love to go, but your husband can't travel. Well, that's all right. Leave him at home. We'll look after you. You'll be fine. It'll be a journey. It'll be an adventure. I mean, it's a different matter if your husband, has to stay at home and can't get out of bed or something. But we might be able to arrange help if that's what's required and you really want to come. So, we can do that for you. Don't you worry about that. Dream big, darling. Dream big. That's all I'm saying. Either that or we'll get a wheelchair. We'll wheel him out. You know, how much fun. If he likes a beer, I'm sure we can find a Darwin stubby and, you know, put it in his lap and send him to sleep after an hour or two sucking on that. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Have a great night, folks. Thank you very much for your time tonight. And thank you again to David Cole for his input. I think it's a very important message and we should have him more on here. We'll talk about The Voice next week. And I would encourage you to get your friends and family ready for that one. I'll try and get somebody who's for The Voice and wants to be a yes vote for it. But I don't think I'm going to find too many in my circle. There may be somebody who's brave enough to stand up, but I doubt it. Otherwise, I'll invite Auntie Glenda as well, and maybe a couple of others, and we'll see who David brings to the party. It could be quite an interesting chat. So that'll be one day next week on Voice of Freedom. I've got to say it'll probably be either early in the week or at the very latest, it'll be Wednesday night. I don't think Thursday and Friday of next week, I'm going to try and put up a couple of shows that will be pre-recorded for you, because Thursday and Friday, I don't think I'm going to be in an area where there is a service where I can put out a show. That's Thursday, Friday next week. And hopefully after that, might have a bit of interesting news to tell you. Could be a bit of fun. There will be a bit of driving involved. Hopefully the dickheads are, well, everywhere else.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!